Would you like to find out how I remember all my podcasts using YouTube and ChatGPT? Let's find out. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to open Chrome, and there I'm going to open YouTube. Now the good thing nowadays is that most podcasts are already uploaded on YouTube. So I will actually look for the podcast that I want. In this case, I'm going to pull up a random podcast, let's say Peter Attia and Matthew Walker, one of my favorite podcasts. And this is Matthew Walker on sleep. Let's just pull up this podcast. Now, what I need to do is try to find the transcript for this podcast. And there's a great Chrome extension called YouTube Summary with ChatGPT. You can Google it, and I'll put the link in the description below. But basically, YouTube Summary with ChatGPT is an extension here, you can see here, that will allow you to get a transcript. And it will pull up to the right of the YouTube video. You'll see this little window called Transcript and Summary. And it will include the whole summary of the podcast and its timestamp. So it's very useful. So what you want to do is you'll see these three little icons here: View AI Summary, Jump to Current Time, and Copy Transcript. You may want to copy the transcript for your records, and I like to copy it and put it in my note app of choice, which in my case is Craft. It could be Obsidian for you or another note-taking app. But basically, I open a new document here and I basically cut and paste, and I cut and paste this whole summary already done for me, amazing transcript of this podcast. Then I go back on YouTube, and now let's say that I want a summary of this podcast. I can just click on this one called View AI Summary. And if the transcript is short enough, which I believe in this case it is, it will automatically create a summary of this podcast. Now, this is ChatGPT being fed the transcript of the Matthew Walker podcast, and ChatGPT right now is thinking and coming up with 5 key points that will summarize the podcast. So let's see if it works. Sometimes it takes a little bit of time to think. Hopefully this will work this time. Yes, it's working. So what it is doing is summarizing this podcast in 5 bullet points, and you can, change the parameters if you'd like. The good thing with this extension is that it is uploading the whole transcript, so you can actually ask any specific questions of the podcast. So let's read some of these bullet points to see if they are accurate. I did listen to this podcast years ago, but I kind of know the gist of it. So in this episode, Peter Attia Drive Podcast, host Peter Attia interviews Matthew Walker on the topic of sleep impact of health. Yes. Matthew Walker discusses the danger of poor sleep, including its association with cognitive decline, Alzheimer's, and other types of dementia. Yes. The podcast delves into the different stages of sleep. Discussion also covers the phenomenon of microsleep and the danger of drowsy driving. And the episode notes that the average sleep duration has declined over time, with the average American now sleeping 6 hours and 31 minutes per night compared to 7.9 hours in 1942. So this is all correct. Obviously, these are very large key points, and there's a lot more detail that goes into this podcast. But if you want to get a general overview, this is a great way of doing it. Now, if you want to ask more specific questions, you can ask ChatGPT to say, for example, what does the podcast say about microsleep? So it will actually refer to the podcast transcript that we uploaded earlier and go into detail. So in this case, it says the podcast discusses the phenomenon of microsleeps, which are brief episodes of sleep that can occur without an individual's awareness. During microsleep, a person may lose their control of their action and become unresponsive for a short period of time, ranging from a fraction of a second to several seconds. And it can lead to potential accidents while driving, etc., etc. So this is very amazing. This is how I remember my podcast. What actually I will do sometimes is I will take these key points and I will again cut and paste it in my note-taking app of choice towards the end here, and write down, copy and paste the 5 key takeaways of this podcast here. So that's it. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this was useful to you. If you like this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you so much.